We are in Genesis 1. What a big surprise, huh? We've covered a lot, and it's taken a lot to reshift the way we see the world, to imagine the world and the world over the cosmos, the way the writers of the Bible saw it. It's so strange, yet kind of familiar, yet really different. We talked about how there's the three tiers, heaven, earth, the sea. But it's really how we describe God's space, our space, and nobody's space, the death, or even death itself. We know how heaven is the same word as the skies, and the earth is just the land, what's here. So when the writers of the Bible think of the earth, they're not thinking of the globe like we do. They just think of right here, the dry land where we're at. But it gets weird, doesn't it? There's the waters, the chaos waters, these death waters that surround us and are even underneath us. And the only reason that the land doesn't fall and sink into these waters is because they're held up by these pillars. Not the geography that I learned in high school. We know that there's not just waters underneath us or to our right and left or the coasts. But there's these chaos waters. This great abyss is actually in some way the waters are above us too. And the only thing holding those waters up from collapsing in on us is this giant sky dome. And so we're in this great big snow globe in a sense. We've got this globe, this dome over our heads. And we talked about this last week, how in Exodus 24 they go up the mountain and then they see God's feet. And his feet are stepping on top of something like sapphire. And it's like he's stepping onto the sky dome. This is really how, when they looked up, when they imagined the world. And so we've come a ways as far as our, understanding of the physical world, but we got to enter into this world and this imagination because there's so much of the meaning that you can only really find through entering into this model of the world order. But it's so weird. There's the waters above with the sky dome. There's the waters below with the pillars. There's the sea creatures. We spent a whole week talking about the sea monsters. And so we know that this world is a little stranger than what maybe we grew up with. This world is a little more dangerous and susceptible to disorder. God says it's good, but it's not very safe. We've got monsters there. We've got the pillars that need to be there. We've got the rakia, the sky dome that needs to be there. All these things. Last week we talked about the heavenly temple and how when we think of heaven, we can think of the skies, but then there's this theme throughout the Bible of heaven coming down to earth. That God's not okay with heaven staying up there and earth staying down here. That he wants to unite the two. And so he starts off with the Garden of Eden, but that doesn't go very well. And so then we see these themes. But then we also see humans wanting to unite the two in their own way. So we looked at the Tower of Babel as a way of bringing heaven to earth, or bringing earth to heaven, uniting heaven and earth in their own way, using their technology, using their means, for their own means' sake. And God said, this is a problem. And so the way heaven and earth join together need to be done in a certain way, or else it can cause some trouble. And so we see that compared. We saw that the Tower of Babel story is designed to be put next to the Jacob story of Genesis 28. You remember when Jacob was fleeing and he's actually heading toward Babylon, and he falls asleep and he sees this ramp and angels coming up and down. And he's like, wow, I didn't realize I was at the gate of heaven. I was at the gate of heaven and I didn't even know it. And so we saw and we explored how when heaven unites earth, it's less about building up certain people's names. It's more about maybe someone who's a little more nameless, like Jacob. It's less about our own ingenuity and brilliance and technology doing it, and it's more about God working on our behalf, as if we were sleeping and in a dream. It's less about the spectacular, this tower that goes up and wow, nobody can miss it. And maybe it's going to look a little more like the subtlety where Jacob wakes up from the dream and he says, wow, I didn't realize I was right before heaven itself. And we put those two together, and then we talked about the Sermon on the Mount. I think that's how we ended last week. We talked about the Sermon on the Mount and how the Sermon on the Mount is more of a Jacob picture than the Tower of Babel picture of heaven coming down, where Jesus says the kingdom of heaven is at hand. And he says, blessed are the poor in spirit, the no-names, the unimportant, and how God's going to use them. And it's going to be in subtle ways through the inner heart. Isn't that incredible? We spend so much time on the Sermon on the Mount and unpacking sort of the what righteousness looks like and what the kingdom of heaven looks like. But to see that this is a theme that starts at the very beginning and how that thread runs throughout the Old Testament. I just find it so fascinating. So when we bring up Genesis 1, it's good for us to know what is this thread of heaven going all the way throughout. So it's this Garden of Eden, it's this ramp. And then we talked about how up on the mountain, Moses got the blueprint for the tabernacle. And he comes down and they build this tabernacle. And then the glory cloud moves from up on the mountain, up there, where nobody wants to go. It's too scary up there. And the cloud comes to us. This heaven invading, heaven coming down to us. So it's a strange, strange world. It's a strange story. And it's gonna get stranger. This might be the next, it could be the last puzzle we have in Genesis 1. The last real strange thing where you've got to read it and reread it and be like, I don't know about this. So that's where we're at today. We're talking about the day 4. So you know what? You guys can open this up. Day 4. Genesis 1. We'll read this together. So, verse 14. And God said, let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens, the rakia, the sky dome. Let there be lights in the sky dome to do a few things. To separate the day from the night. Okay, first off, to separate the day from the night. That is a thing that God does. So day 1, God says, let there be light, and he separates the day from the night. Day 4, God says, now that I've got this whole thing worked out, I'm going to delegate responsibility to one of my creatures. What an amazing picture. What a brilliant picture of who God is. God is not the God who feels like he has to be the one doing everything. His creatures aren't his slaves. He doesn't have to manipulate his creatures to get things done. He gives authority and delegation to his creatures. And so he makes the lights in the expanse of the heavens to do what he does. So they're a reflection of him doing his job. It goes on, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. Signs, seasons, days, years. Say that with me. Signs, seasons, days, years. Okay, we'll start with days and years. So these lights in the expanse of the sky, we know that they tell us something about time. And they set the calendar. So based off of the sun, moon, and stars, we get an idea of what a day is or what a year is. That makes sense. So days and years make sense. Seasons is a little different. Seasons, this word for seasons in the Hebrew actually could refer to festivals. So throughout the Jewish calendar, there's going to be holy days and festivals. And those were a big part of Israel's worship to God. And so here, these sun, moons, and stars, these lights in the expanse of the sky, are the worship leaders, the first worship leaders of creation, designating when it's time to celebrate these different festivals. So, signs, seasons, days, years. What about signs? Signs. The word can mean a symbol. Well, if it's a sign or symbol, what's it a symbol or sign for? What does it point to? You guys are familiar with Moses and the burning bush. I think we talked about that last week. The burning bush story. It's one of the first times we see the word sign. So God speaks to Moses, says you're going to let the people out of Israel, you're going to rescue them. And he says this will be a sign for you that you're going to go back to this same mountain that I'm talking to you on. And so the burning bush and the mountain become a sign for when they go back to a mountain and there's fire on that mountain. So fire becomes a sign for fire. And the mountain becomes a sign for itself, the mountain. It's something that is pointing to something else that's happening, or that some other reality that's similar. And so these lights are a sign of what? A symbol of what? And let them be lights in the expanse of the heavens to give light upon the earth. And it was so. God made the two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, the lesser light to rule the night. Notice we've said before, he doesn't say the word sun or moon. He says the greater light and the lesser light. And what are they doing? They're ruling. These are the rulers above, the sky rulers. And he makes the stars. And God set them in the expanse of the heavens and give light to the earth to rule over the day and over the night, to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. There's evening and there's morning, the fourth day. What is happening with these lights in the expanse of the sky? You see, when I look up, and when you look up at a nighttime sky, or when you look up and you squint your eyes and just kind of glance at the sun for a little bit, you know you're not supposed to, but you just for a little bit, you think it'll be okay. Or at night, if you see the stars, you see the moon, you know that you are looking at, what is it? Big bundles of gas in the sky? or big rock in the sky? But when the ancients looked up, that's not what they thought of. When they looked up at the sky, they thought of living beings. They thought of spiritual beings. A lot of them, Israel's neighbors, they worshipped these stars, moon, and the sun. They worshipped them as gods. Well, here we don't have them being gods. They are created by God, but could they be spiritual beings? Like God is a spiritual being? Could they be a sign of who God is? No, that's too weird, right? But I don't know. I mean, we've been talking about sea monsters. Maybe the sky and the stars up there are actually what we consider as the angels. When we're talking about the stars up there, the sun, moon, and stars, we're actually talking about spiritual beings. Let me see if I can convince you of it. So Deuteronomy 4 talks about don't worship the sun, moon, and stars like your neighbors do. These are being worshipped like they're gods. And so there's this sort of hint at like, oh, these are spiritual beings, but they're created by God. They're not to be worshipped. They're not God. Here's one for you. So if you turn to Genesis 2:1, you see, thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. Okay, so what are the hosts of earth? Well, us, the inhabitants of the earth, and the animals. What are the hosts of heaven? What are the hosts of heaven? Well, let's go to Psalm 103. Psalm 103. We got to figure this one out. What are the hosts of heaven? Now, I'm asking you to be an investigator here. Psalm 103. We'll start at 19. The Lord has established his throne in the heavens, and his kingdom rules over all. Again, heaven and throne, all over the Bible. Heaven and throne, the kingdom of heaven. Verse 20. Bless the Lord, O you his. Who's got it? Who's got it? What does it say? Angels. That's what mine says. Angels. You mighty ones who do his word, obeying the voice of his word. Bless the Lord, all his, what does that say? Hosts. Angels and hosts are in parallel with each other. All you as hosts. His ministers who do his will. So who's the host of heaven? Throughout the Bible, we get this idea of hosts of heaven, and those are angels. But in Genesis 1, the only hosts that we have are the sun, moon, and stars. We're talking about the creation of angels here. See, you guys thought that I was just going to skip over Mother's Day. I know, sometimes I get caught up in my series, and I love to just give these long, like we're going to spend weeks and weeks on this one topic and this one part of the Bible, and I love it, and I can't take any breaks from it, and sometimes I'm kicking and screaming because there's a holiday. Well, today you're in luck, because today we're not preaching on Genesis. Today we're preaching on Mother's Day. You know why? Because the topic of today is angels. I try. You know what? If you want to, you can turn with me to Luke 2. Luke 2, if you're still unconvinced. What do we have in verse 8? This is the Christmas story. Now I'm really off on my holidays. And in the same region there were shepherds out in the field keeping watch over their flock by night, and an angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were filled with fear. So we've got angel of the Lord, glory of the Lord, and shining. Glory of the Lord and shining, an angel. Why do we see angels associated with light? It's like, whoa. Luke has Genesis 1 on the brain. Verse 13, we'll skip down. And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host. Who are these heavenly hosts again? We're in Genesis 2:1. The heavenly hosts are the angels. The angels praising God and saying glory to God in the highest. Here we go. This is you know this story. You've heard this story. Charlie Brown told you about all this. I'm not making anything up here. The heavenly hosts. The Genesis 1. The day 4 sky rulers. The rulers above. Those are the angels. Okay, so what do we know about angels? What can we say about angels? What do these angels do? Well, let's teach you a little bit about angels. I'll tell you, when I was very young, one of my youngest memories, I must have been 6, 7 years old. I don't know what it was. It was some family function, and a magician came out, and it was my whole extended family. There must have been 40, 50 of us, and my uncle got involved in the magic trick. And they were kidding around, and a part of the whole joke was that my uncle accidentally died, and he's like, oh, what happened to him? And so he leaves the room, and we were laughing. It was the funniest thing. As kids, we knew it was all for fun and stuff. But at the end of the magic show, my uncle came out wearing wings and a little halo, and that was the most hilarious thing in my mind. It was the best day ever, seeing my uncle come out. And the idea there, I don't know where that comes from, but what do we think of angels? We think, when we die, we all become angels? What do we think of? Angels. What are these angels? In the Greek, the word is angelos. So the word angel in English, we just borrow from Greek. We just take that exact word, angelos. What does angelos mean? Well, it actually means messenger. So it's not always a spiritual being, it's a messenger. And so in the Hebrew, it's malach. So messenger. So that says more of their function than their substance. It's what they do. But it's what some Here's the funny thing. Some of the angels, angelos. Not all of the angels, angelos. Some of the angels, angelos. When we think of angels as messengers, one of the functions of some of the angels, we think of them not winged. We can think of them as looking like you or me. Because all throughout the Bible, we see these angels showing up in human form. This is so weird. Which means you might have met an angel and not known it. It's crazy. It's crazy. In high school, I went to this retreat, and the speaker was sharing, he was preaching, and he was talking about all these near-death experiences. Like one with his daughter, and then others that he knew of people where angels were involved. Like, I haven't had that kind of experience, but can that happen? I mean, there's messengers from God out there. And it's like the Jacob story, where Jacob wakes up from his dream. He says, heaven was here, and I didn't know it. It's this idea that angels could be around us, and we don't even know it. Angelos, messengers. But that's not all angels do. Angels are like God's staff team. Let's go ahead and see another strange story. 1 Kings 22. We get these kings having issues with one of the prophets. He says, I don't like going to this prophet. He doesn't tell me anything good. And they're trying to make sense of what to do. And we'll start in, let's say, verse 18. So 1 Kings 22:18. And the king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, did I not tell you that he would not prophesy good concerning me, but evil? And Micaiah, the prophet, said, therefore, hear the word of the Lord. I saw the Lord sitting on his throne. This is like Isaiah. I saw the Lord on his throne. And all the host of heaven. Now we know what the host of heaven are. Standing beside him on his right and on his left. So we've got God on the throne. Angels all around him. What's going to happen? And the Lord said, who will entice Ahab, that he may go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? So who's going to go? And one said one thing, and another said another. Then a spirit came forward and stood before the Lord, saying, I'll do it. I'll entice him. And the Lord said to him, by what means? And he said, I will go out and will be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. And he said, you are to entice him, and you shall succeed. Go out and do so. What in the world? Now therefore, behold, the Lord has put a lying spirit in the mouth of all these your prophets. The Lord has declared disaster for you. He sees the throne. Here's the Lord sitting on his throne. Angels all around. He says, who's going to go? He says, one of them finally comes up. I'll go. He says, okay, how do you suppose you're going to do it? He says, here's what I think I'll do. This is a brainstorming session. This is the courtroom of heaven. And God is brainstorming with the hosts of heaven. This is what the Bible sometimes refers to as the council of heaven, where God is there and he's inviting input from these other spiritual beings. The council of heaven. And then he sends them out. So he becomes that messenger being sent out. So there's angels that are with God. They're in the throne room. They're hashing things out. They're spitting out ideas for God. And then there's angels that go out and act as his messengers. This is the day before. These are the lights in the rakia. Are the rulers above. What a strange world this Bible is, I tell you. And then it's a lying spirit. I don't even know what to do with that. I thought lying was a sin, and he puts in a lying spirit, and God sends out the... What in the world? What in the world? But the council of heaven. The council of heaven. So what could this mean for us? So this could be fun little Bible trivia, sure. But what does that mean for you and me? Is there anything we can find out about this? I mean, why do we even need to know about these angels up here, these sky rulers? Why is it relevant to us? So let's remember maybe we look at the origami of Genesis 1. You guys remember that, right? Days 1, 2, and 3 form one column, 4, 5, and 6 the other, and so they fold in on each other. So that means day 1 and 4 sync up with each other. Day 1, God says, let there be light. Day 4, he says, let there be light. So we're talking about day 4. But then it folds the other way. It folds this way too. So day 4 and day 6 fold in on each other. Well, who are the rulers of day 6? It's Richard. It's all of us. We're the rulers of day 6. Human beings. We're given dominion. And if the rulers above are the signs of God, right? They're the lights. They symbolize God by being light. Well, who's the ultimate source of light? That's God himself. So they're the symbols and signs of God. And we're like the signs and symbols, but the word that's used in Genesis 1 is that we are the image of God. Very similar. Very similar. The signs of God up there, the sky rulers, the land rulers, the rulers below us, we are the image of God. So in some way, understanding the function of angels and understanding their role in the whole cosmos can actually shed light on who we are. You know, this is so important for us because I grew up in church and the very first word of what it means to be human is that we are failures, that we are disasters, that we can't do anything right. Total depravity. And that might be a part of who we are. We really let God down a lot. Read the Bible. We screw it up quite often. But the first words of what it means to be human is not something negative. We get this idea that there's these sky rulers, and we, in a sense, reflect the sky rulers by being the land rulers. That we are called to share in God's authority. We have delegated authority from God. What an honor. What would that do to you if you recognized that you had a purpose and that, what would that do to the way you treat other people? When one of the first words of what it means to be human is we're like those sky rulers, but we're here on the land, ruling the land. We have a responsibility, we have a dignity as human beings. And just like the sky rulers and the land rulers, we sometimes work together. Joshua really shows this. It's a real interesting story of Joshua 5. Where one day Joshua comes up against this guy with a sword, and he realizes that it was an angel. And he says, are you on my side or on their side? And he says, that's irrelevant. I'm on the Lord's side. I'm a part of the Lord's army or the hosts of the Lord. And so here's the equivalent of Joshua and Joshua meeting together, both doing the Lord's bidding. Or when Joshua, in Joshua 10, commands the sun to stand still. Well, we know that the sun, moon, and stars are symbolic of the angels. And so telling the sun to stand still is calling on the hosts of heaven to act on God's behalf. And so when the sun stood still, it's like the angels submitted to Joshua's prayer. And so these sky rulers will sometimes actually work together with the land rulers. Next week we're going to talk about the land rulers, and we're going to talk about the famous let us make man in our image. But let's just take a moment and just think about this. It says, let us. And maybe there's a sense of the Trinity there. When God says, let us make humanity in our image. But could it be, from what we're reading, that it seems like sometimes God will consult his counsel and come up with things together. Could it be that in some sense, we are like those spiritual beings, that we're in the image of God and his counsel? What does that say about humanity, if that's what it is? You see what I'm saying? When he says, let us, he's in conversation with the angels. What could that mean for who we are? Let's pray. Father God, we thank you so much that there is so